Welcome to Lair the Alchemist, and on today's episode, my 5 favorite death metal bands. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't go super deep when it comes to death metal. I've never been able to fully embrace death metal. I'm going to make a separate video on why it might be, why it is that I've never been able to fully embrace death metal and extreme metal in general, so I'm not going to get into that here. Also, I've talked about on the channel my years away from metal, roughly 89 to like 92, 93. So I sort of missed that first wave of death metal. I didn't really start listening to death metal until like the late 90s, early 2000s. So I think that affects some of the bands and some of the music that I like. So I've got 5 bands here. Some of them I don't go super deep on their catalogs. I really only know maybe certain albums. I'd say my number 1 and my number 2 pick, I do go deep with their catalog. So I don't know all the backstory and history of some of these bands. But all right, here we go. Number 5 for me is Behemoth, and they're probably the most recently discovered band for me on my list. I've probably started listening to Behemoth maybe like 7-8 years ago or something like that. I like them for the intensity, the vocals. I think the songs are somewhat catchy, and just kind of the overall mood that you get from Behemoth. They jump out at me. Okay, number 4 for me is Mastadon, and I've liked Mastadon since Leviathan, which I believe is their second record, and it came out in like 2001, something like that. The whole white whale thing, it just really grabbed me, and I thought the sort of the progressiveness of what they do, the drumming on it is just phenomenal. I've seen Behemoth I've seen Behemoth once, I believe, in concert. I've seen Mastodon 2 or 3 times, and they always sound amazing. I saw them at the Welcome to Rockville a few years ago, and I was just blown away by how powerful they were, and their sound was just spot on. So they have this sort of progressive element to what they do, time changes and stuff like that. They use like 6/8, 12/8 time a lot. So I guess that sort of attracted me to them. The rhythms that they use and everything, the drumming is really over the top, and their stuff is really catchy too. They've got different people that sing. I know now they don't do as much death metal type stuff, but I'm referring to their death metal era. I really enjoy that era of the band. In fact, I would say I enjoy their death metal stuff more than their clean singing stuff. Same thing is going to apply with this next band, Opth. I've been following Opth since maybe like the late 90s, early 2000s. And I think what caught my ear with Opth was at the time the way they were blending death metal vocals with some clean vocals. That was really unique at the time. That helped me sort of transition into death metal. I'd say that even Opeth is a band that did help me sort of start getting into death metal and start exploring other bands from the genre. And I like the progressive nature of what they do, the way they mix the clean stuff, the atmospheric and moody type stuff. Again, I'm referring to this era of the band. I know that they've totally gotten away from that, and now they're more like a 70s prog band, which I think is pretty cool. I do like some of that stuff, but I actually prefer this era of the band when they were doing the more death metal type stuff with just the occasional clean vocals. I just like that progressive nature, the mood of what they do, the chops from the guitars and all the players and everything. So I've seen them. I saw them early, like in like 2000, 2001, something like that. And I remember just being blown away. I actually met them. There was they did a in-store signing when I used to live in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. Relapse Records, I mean, imagine this. They had their own store, their own storefront, and it just sold like death metal and black metal and stuff on their label. And upstairs, it was a very small shop, but upstairs they had a little area where they did a in-store signing, and there was only like about 10 people there. And I'll tell you a funny story. When I went up, it was in the winter, and I remember I had a raging fever, right? I should have stayed home, but I wasn't going to miss Opeth. And it was really hot, so I took my jacket off, and underneath it I had a Candlemass shirt on. And Michael from Opeth saw me in the line, and he pointed me out, and he said, "Hey, you, come here." and there weren't that many people in the line. But he called me up and he started taking, he had like layers of shirts. He took his jacket off, he had a sweater on, and eventually he got down to his t-shirt and he was wearing the exact same Candlemass t-shirt as I was. So I thought that was pretty cool. If I ever meet him, I'm going to see if he remembers that. I doubt it, but okay. So that was my number 3. My number 2, now this is a band that I do go deep with their catalog. I pretty much have all their stuff, although I prefer the early stuff with David Vincent. I like Morbid Angel for, I don't know, just the craziness of their riffing. It's almost like atonal riffing. It's just so out there at times. I think the stuff from the David Vincent era is much more catchier than the later stuff. So I really like the first so many Morbid Angel albums, the mood and the vibe, the dark, sinister vibe to what they do. Trey's guitar playing, I think, is really crazy. He's one of my favorite guitar players from the death metal genre. So Morbid Angel comes in at number 2 for me. And number 1 is going to be Death. This is by far my favorite death metal band. Depending on the mood I'm in, sometimes I like the early stuff like Spiritual Healing, Leprosy, the first album, which is more kind of brutal. Then there's other times where all I can listen to is the more technical stuff like Human and Individual Thought Patterns. And I love it all. I think that it's catchy songwriting. I think the riffing is incredible. The musicianship is incredible. Even on this early stuff, I think the stuff is catchy. There's hooks in it. That's sometimes my problem with death metal. There aren't enough hooks. It just seems like random stitched together riffs. But that's not the case with Death. I really dig the fact that every Death album is different. Chuck was always progressing. It's kind of fun now that I've moved to Florida that I run into people that knew him and tell stories about him. I think that that's pretty cool. And actually, in one of these, this is a reissue, and in one of these, it may have been in this one. I'll see if it's in here. Oh, this isn't a gatefold. On some of these, on one of these reissues, there's like a letter you can see that, like a tape trading letter that Chuck must have sent to somebody, and you can see his address on there. And my son plays hockey, or used to play hockey, in this arena that was close to where Chuck used to live. So one time I dropped him off and was like, you know what? I'm going to drive by Chuck's house. So I did. I drove by his house. It's like, in a little cul-de-sac just down the street from a mall in Florida. But yeah, I just, the creativity, the musicianship, the songs, the way they kept progressing. I just love it. And the fact that, in my opinion, they're the first death metal band. I know people would argue that Possessed is that. Maybe that's a topic for another video. But, yeah, love Death. They're definitely hands down my number 1 death metal band. Okay, there you go. Let me know what you think of my picks. What are your picks? Who are your 5 favorite death metal bands? Let me know down below. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Till we see you again. Make sure you stay metal.